Welcome to Module 3 of Platoon's Intro to Coding self-paced program. In our previous modules, we learned about variables, data types, simple calculations, and common coding terms. Now, we'll dive into control flow, which is all about making decisions in your code. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to use if, elif, and else statements to make Python do different things based on conditions. Let's get started. What are conditional statements? Conditional statements allow your program to make choices. In real life, we often say things like, if it's raining, take an umbrella. Else, enjoy the sunshine. Python's conditional statements work the same way. They're the building blocks for almost all interactive or responsive programs. Everything from simple quizzes to complex artificial intelligence relies on conditionals to decide what to do next. Let's look at some syntax. An if statement needs to be constructed by using the if keyword. The if keyword lets Python know that we are about to start an if-else block. After the if keyword, we pass in what we call the condition. The condition can be many things. We can compare two different numbers, whether they're greater, less than, or equal. We can check if something is true or false. Or we can even check what type of data type we're working with. After the condition, we end it with a colon. This colon signifies that we are ready to start a code block to give it some form of logic. After the colon, we press enter, and our editor already knows that we immediately need to indent 4 spaces to the right. In Python, code blocks are 1 indentation with the tab or 4 spaces to the right. Everything after this colon that's indented to the right belongs specifically to the if condition. Within here, we add our code block, or in other words, our logic. So here, if it was raining outside, within this code block, after the indentation, after the colon, this is where we would put, we should take an umbrella. Now, let's look into a real example. We're going to create a temperature variable. This temperature variable is going to hold an integer of 30 to signify our temperature. Afterwards, using that temperature variable, we're going to set a condition. We'll start this off with our if keyword. And we're going to say if temperature is greater than 25, and we're going to end this with a colon, specify that I'm ready to pass in some logic. I press space, and I enter my code block. If the temperature is greater than 25, I want to print it's hot outside. We can go ahead and run this. And I see here that I get the output of it's hot outside. Here, temperature is greater than 25, so this returns is true, one of our booleans. So Python is going to print out it's hot outside. Once again, Python uses indentation, usually 4 spaces, to show which code belongs to an if statement. If your code isn't indented correctly, you'll get errors or unexpected behavior. Next, it's going to be the else statement. The else statement covers what happens if the if condition isn't met, or in other words, if it comes back as false. You can think of it as a safety net or a default response. Let's look into syntax. Just like before, we had if condition, and we'd pass in a code block, if true. For the else statement, very similar to the if keyword, we need an else keyword. And it's just going to be else, because this is the default. isn't any specific condition here. Really, the condition for this else statement to trigger is if the if condition isn't met. So all we need is the else keyword followed by the colon. And just like the if condition, we press enter and go into its own unique code block. And here would be the logic for our else statement in the event our if statement isn't met. Now, using our example from earlier, we have if our temperature is greater than 25, let's do some quick editing. Let's change, instead of 30, let's change our temperature to 20. And now, if temperature is greater than 25, when we run this, nothing should trigger. As you can see here, when I run this, there's no print statement. That's because when it gets to line 3, it's going to check the condition if temperature is greater than 25, and it's going to fail. This returns as false. Therefore, the code block at line 4 is never triggered. So let's add an else statement here. We're going to say else. We want to print it's not too hot outside. And when I run this, what gets printed out is the code block within the else statement. Once again, when this runs, the if condition fails and it defaults to the else statement. Here, since temperature is greater than 25, it returns as false. Python goes to the else part and prints it's not too hot outside. This basic if-else structure lets you handle two possible outcomes in your program. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what if I have other conditions that I want to check? Well, Python gives us a way to handle that, and that's the elif clause. Just like the if or the else, we now have the elif, which is shorthand for else if, and it lets you check for multiple conditions in a row, one after another, until one condition is true. Let's look at some syntax real quick. Adding to our previous code examples, we had our if condition, and we had the else statement. Notice I have something different here now. Here I have if condition 1, but instead of defaulting to the else statement, I now have a condition before the else statement. This is my elif condition. When Python runs our code, it runs from top to bottom. So it's going to run into line 1, where it's going to check condition 1. If it runs, condition 1 will be the one that gets prioritized and nothing else follows. But if condition 1 fails, then Python goes to our elif condition, which is condition 2. If this runs, it runs the code block within condition 2 and nothing else follows. But if both condition 1 and condition 2 fail, then at that point, we default to our else clause. Let's go ahead and add on to our previous example. We had our temperature set to 20. Let's go ahead and change this to 15. And between the if and the else statement, we're going to go ahead and add our elif clause. We'll say elif temperature is greater than 15. We're going to print it's warm outside. When we run this, Python is going to check if temperature is greater than 25, since this is the first clause that runs. Because temperature is currently set to 15, this is going to fail. And we'll never see it's hot outside being printed out. It then goes to line 5. We're going to check if the elif temperature is greater than 15, which is true. And it should print out it's warm outside. When we run this, Wait for it. Let's go ahead. If it's greater, let's go ahead and say 16. Not 16. We're going to say greater than 14. Okay. All right, from the top. Let's look at a real example here. So going back to our previous code, we now have temperature set to 15. But here we added something different. Now we added the elif statement. We're going to check if the statement of temperature or our variable is greater than 14. If it's greater than 14, I want to print out it's warm outside. But notice this is the elif statement. So when our Python code runs first, it's going to run the if statement. When it runs the if statement, our if statement is going to fail. Temperature is 15. It is not greater than 25, so it won't print out it's hot outside. It'll then go to line 5, where we'll see the elif temperature greater than 14 run, and we should see it's warm outside. When I run this, I see that I get exactly what I predicted. Now, what if I change temperature to 12 and I run this again? And notice because both my if statement and my elif statement failed, we default to our else statement. You can have as many elif statements as you want, but try not to overdo it. Sometimes it's better to use other data structures or logic if you find yourself writing a lot of elif blocks. Remember, Python won't run your code correctly if your indentation is off. Double check you're using consistent spacing. Remember the colon. Don't forget the colon after if, elif, and else. Python needs that to know that you're starting a code block. Ordering matters. Python runs your conditions from top to bottom. Once it finds a true condition, it stops checking the rest. Make sure you put the most important conditions first. You can use things like and, or not in conditions. For example, if temperature is greater than 25 and is sunny, which could be true, a boolean, only if both temperature is greater than 25 and both is sunny are true will this run. But more on that later. In conclusion, now you know how to guide your program's flow using if, elif, and else statements. This is how your code can respond to different situations or user input. In our next video, we'll build a small hands-on project that uses conditional statements to make decisions in real time. You'll see how useful these are in practical programs. Remember to practice on your own. Try writing a program that recommends an outfit based on the temperature or one that checks if a user's guess matches a secret number. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll get with these concepts. Thanks for joining me in this lesson on conditional statements. See you next time for some hands-on fun with decisions in Python. Keep coding and keep exploring.